A sold-out crowd awaits the afternoon of auto racing at GRIDLIFE Midwest, the 10th annual Midwest Festival at GingerMan Raceway. Welcome back to an afternoon, this time with GRIDLIFE Touring Cup's Top 10 Shootout. I'm Kyle Heyer, joined by Cerise from FCP Hero. Cerise, welcome back.
Thank you so much. My face powdered. We are dealing with the heat. And we're having a great day. Today has already been a little bit interesting. As we saw in the first GLTC session, we had a little bit of a mishap. But this is going to be a fun one. This is a really fun part of the GLTC series when we shake things up a bit.
Yeah, we're going to requalify our top 10 from race number 2. But, of course, GRIDLIFE Midwest coverage is brought to you by Hyundai N. Hyundai N, never just drive. And Falcon, the official tire of GRIDLIFE Track Battle. On track now is the first of our top 10 shootout competitors, and this is a bit of a surprise, Cerise, because this is Zach Lavoy. Now, he was 10th post-race number 2, so this is a little bit of 11th after we get a look from our Ionic 5 Skycam. So he was not in the top 10, so that means that someone had an issue in scrutineering and was bumped out of the top 10. That will promote Zach Lavoy into the top 10, and now he has a chance to requalify to get himself higher up for the start of race number 3.
And that's influential because when you're out here, you want to have as many opportunities to win as you can. So now is his time to shine, and he's going to go out there. There's the additional pressures of having other cars on track with you are eliminated in this series. So
yeah, at this point, it's just one driver, one lap, and it's going to set your best effort to start race number 3 a little higher than you finished race number 2. Everyone from 11th on down is going to start where they finish. Let's watch Zach here through turn number 9.
And he's just bouncing off these lines. You know, he's going from clipping point to outside zone. I mean, he knows exactly where he wants to put that car. He's an experienced driver. A lot of the guys on the ASM team are.
Yeah, the K24 powering that S2000 underneath the hood. Let's just listen as he accelerates up out of 10B. Love this track side sounds here, Cerise.
Those S2000s are great.
Up into 5th gear, then down onto the brakes. You're going to go down to 4th and then into 3rd gear to handle the last corner here. Come back to the stripe. This is his flying lap, so this will count. It's only here in top 10 shoot. A little bobble there as he exits turn 11. And across the line, what does Zach Lavoy do in the number 42? It is a 1:42.798, so we'll see if it stands. But we're going to see, again, we're receding from slowest to fastest, so we're going to progressively get quicker as we move on.
We're going to watch that bar change as each driver gets out there. Say, who do we got next?
This is Hurlbert, the number 34, and this is a Nissan 370Z. And Cerise, you're familiar with the Z platform on the drift side of things. It is a car that is well respected in that community and in wheel-to-wheel racing. This car obviously built for grip, but it's a popular car, as is the 350.
It's a bit of a heavier car. So as we talked about in the first GLT session, that balance of power, weight to power ratio definitely comes into effect. It's not necessarily as much of a factor in this series, right? Because everybody's out here with the right ratios. But it's a great platform for drifting and grip racing.
Yep, and you mentioned the power to weight ratio, so that means that Austin is a little heavier than the majority of the 4-cylinder cars, but carrying some more power with that VQ V6 engine.
Yep.
Across the stripe, here he comes into turn number 1. Through the first corner here, nicely balanced, gets right to the apex. A little slide there in the mid-corner, and now into turn number 2.
Really good fitment on this car, too. You can just see it is inches away from the ground. The arrow on this seems like it's really well set up.
Yeah, and this car used to be a street class time attack car, so he's changed over the years. But one of the things with GLTC, in addition to your power and your weight, one of those other factors is your tire width, and Austin's got some pretty beefy tires on this thing. They have to be covered by the fender, which Austin has them, but you mentioned the fitment. That's about as much tire as you can fit under the fenders on this car.
Absolutely.
Into turn 5 now. He's going to tuck it in and float out right out to the edge of the track. Didn't get up on the curbing there. That grip level kind of drops away on that curb, but then out at the exit of 6. Well done here. Now into turn 7. Shorter straightaway than from 2 to 3.
Maybe a little bit for myself and maybe for the people at home too. Are we strictly looking at factors of time in this setup, or are we accounting for anything else?
This is just a 1-lap shootout, like as per the name, and very similar in style and structure to our NOS Energy Track Battle Podium Sprint, which will be later today. They're going to get 2 laps apiece, and that will be 35 cars.
And you get the best from those 2.
And you'll take only your best lap.
Which is great.
It's just great. But this is one and done. So if you make a mistake, you're going to start out worst 10th. So not a big deal there. But now up the back straightaway comes Austin Hurtle, and the straightaway speed is where this car is really going to excel with that heavier 370Z platform, and dives on the brakes. Very well controlled suspension on this car. He has it set up very nicely. And coming back to the stripe, he has to beat a 42.798 to be on top of the board here, Cerise. Will he do it? he will not.
Okay, well that was close, but we know that milliseconds matter.
Yeah, that time it was tenths, but milliseconds as well on top of that. 147.9. Hey, I mean, technically they are milliseconds. There's just 900 of them compared to the 798 of Zach Lavoy on the 142. This is Eric Jensen up next out of the G-Speed camp. Eric hails out of the Texas area, and he's going to head on down to, this is Trophy Club, Texas is his hometown. I remember that off the top of my head. I'm very proud of myself.
You have a lot of information stored in there. We love that, so we appreciate you.
LS Swap FRS. He has a sticker on the back that says identifies as a Corvette because it's a power plant from, I think, the C6. But off into turn number 1. Overhead camera shot there. What a beautiful angle. Misses the apex there at 1 there a little series.
Should have dived in a little bit heavier, but here we are. He's going to hit this one.
Tucks it in pretty tight there for turn 2. He exited this corner right up to the edge of the road, but you heard that engine on power.
Sounds great.
Now into turn 3 on the brakes once more.
Developing some speed here. All right, he's kind of taking it a little conservative on these turns.
Little wide. He tucked it in right at the exit there, and we talked about how at turn 3 the apex is so much later there than you'd expect. So he washed out a little wide, but carried the speed down to the apex at exit. So that was actually not too bad of a line. Into 5, into 6. This is where he went off yesterday in race 1, but he keeps it on course that time very well. And now up to turn number 7. And this is, again, one of those heavier cars, Therese. It's a detuned significantly. Makes 215 horsepower is what he told me yesterday. I mean, that is
significant is an understatement.
Yeah, again, I think his son...
Do you know what these things come with out of the box, huh?
It's going to be in the 400s, I know that. Jackson Jensen's car, which is his son's C6 Corvette, dynoed unrestricted, I think north of 480, and runs at 220, 230 here in the series. So that just shows you, but the goal of that is to get a flat power curve because your power to weight is done by your peak power series. So if you're making your peak power at 2,000 RPM and at 7,000 RPM, you're going to have an advantage over those that can only do it at 7,000 RPM.
Consistency. Yep. We're talking about consistency here.
Now down the back straightaway into the braking zone here. One of the faster cars on the straights. And he's got significant aero on the back of this. There's not a lot of FRS left underneath it. What a well-handling chassis, even in stock form, though. But out of turn 11, across the line, what happens now to Eric Jensen? Across the stripe for the number 184, and it is slower, a 143.303. That is surprising to me.
Zach Lavoy is really holding it down right now. Let's go, Zach. Okay.
Again, typically we see the lap times get faster throughout the session, but Zach Lavoy laid down a quick enough lap. We know that track conditions have been challenging. But we'll see what Matt Walbum's got here. He's just coming to his to start his flying lap here.
Yep.
And this is, again, out of the ASM camp in that number 90. Has a couple of wins to his name so far in his career. Won this season back at Watkins Glen, and here he comes to the green.
He's been sliding a little bit. I've seen that, a little bit this morning and a little bit again just there on that last turn.
They were working on it yesterday to try to dial in that suspension. This is such a handling track right out to the edge of the road at turn number 1, Cerise, and now into turn 2. Let's listen. Similar to the sounds of Zach Lavoy's car, again, pretty much the same under the hood.
Very clean sound. Very clean driving, honestly.
I think this team does run mufflers on these cars too, so they have a little bit of a warble that some of the other K-Swap cars don't have, and it's a very unique sound to this Honda power plant that is not all that unique as far as being here in the paddock. K24 is a very popular engine choice. Nice floated line through turn number 6. It gets right down to the apex. See the car walk a little bit, but that didn't cost him time there. He was well on balance and well under control there. You hear the drone in the background chasing him around as well.
That was a scream for a second. Oh, the fans are loving it.
Out to the edge at turn 7, right in tight at 8. Flick it back left into 9. I love this camera shot because it just shows the transient maneuver from right to left and the weight balance, the shift. They have Matan suspension on these cars, which is really high-end stuff. So they've got the chassis control figured out on these cars.
Yep. I mean, even just walking in the pits earlier, just seeing all the guys just dialing everything in, making sure that everything is exactly where they want it.
And now down the long back straightaway, which in the past would have perhaps been this car's weakness as one of the 4-cylinder cars, but they put some special sauce under the hood before Watkins Glen. It's not really going to pay off here so much. It might more do that at Road America. Trips the timing and scoring across the stripe. Will he go to provisional pole in race number 3? 141.
Okay, here we go.
485, top of the board series.
And you got 2 ASM drivers now going head-to-head, which is really fun for them because they love that internal competition. All right, next one out.
This is the 41 of James Houghton out of Kitchener, Ontario, with the K-tuned Acura TSX. This is another K24 build, and we got a little bit of a look at the spoiler yesterday in the run down pit lane. And I've got a photo. I meant to give this to Eric to get up on the screen, but I'm going to show Cerise behind the scenes so I can show her what I was talking about yesterday. The slots cut in the spoiler.
Look at that.
And so he's got vertical, basically vertical striations cut in the spoiler to still have the effectiveness of the rear spoiler and give that downforce, but also it reduces the surface area of this component so that it's compliant with the rules. Very clever engineering.
For those at home, what he's showing me, it basically looks like an air vent, like that you would see like an air ducting system.
Yep.
And so it has little tiny slot. I mean, that's pretty brilliant.
Right, because the wing sizes in GridLife Touring Cup are done by surface area. So he figured out, hey, if I can reduce the surface area in this component, I can make it taller without actually making the area wider. And those small slots are not going to have an enormous effect on how the air travels over that component. So just really good engineering. We'll show that to you a little bit later, maybe on the camera at the end of the show. But now down through turn number 4 and 5. This is a front-wheel drive car, one of the few that's in the top 10 shootout. I think we should have at least 3 with Ronnie Vidoc and Eric Kutil also.
What do you think the benefits or drawbacks are with front-wheel drive? I mean, we know that the power comes from the rear in a real drive car, but in this kind of racing, what are we going to see? Well,
there's a couple things that will help you, especially when it rains. The front-wheel drive cars tend to be a bit more balanced and under control in those conditions.
We're going to get some of that later today.
Yeah, and potentially. And also, you don't have a lot of drivetrain loss from your engine down to your wheels, which, as far as where your dyno doesn't matter because we're taking wheel horsepower, but it means you're extracting more out of the engine that you put in there. So you're not necessarily having to extract all the juice out of it. You can detune it like the 41 of James Houghton has with his K-tuned team. So up, down the back straightaway now. Different sounding K24. That thing's almost completely uncorked. He told me that he's going to put a different exhaust on for Road America and let that thing really sing.
Oh, that's wonderful. All the sights and sounds, please.
Off into...
See if we can get a good clip here.
Turn number 11. What does James Houghton do? Again, we're re-qualifying the top 10 for our 3rd race on the day. And James Houghton, top of the board by a 1/10 of a second, a 141.
Now.
It's going to get spicy here. That's a really strong lap considering the heat of the day. Yep. And here comes Eric Kutil. And Cerise, we've talked at length about his challenges this season. For those that don't know, we'll go over it one more time.
Sure.
This car is built after his accident with his EG hatchback at Road America in the season finale of 2021 when he was going for the championship. He rebuilt this car in 6 months, had a great debut at the tail end of last year. After the first round at Circuit of the Americas, was driving home after that event, and his dad fell asleep behind the wheel. This car ended up upside down in a ditch on the side of a Tennessee highway. Truck and trailer destroyed. Thankfully, his dad and him are both okay. Yep. That was the best news of all. Went right back to Watkins Glen, podiumed with this car because it was miraculously not all that damaged, and now he's back on track.
If we get another good shot of it, and listen, if you have a cage builder, I need you to send them a text and say thank you. Due to the structure of the cage and how well it was built, the car was able to stay intact, and he's actually kept the roof exactly as it is. I think it's kind of like a little bit of a battle wound situation.
Yeah, it's hard to tell at this distance, but their roof is still caved in right here.
Yep, there you go. You can see some shadows, and you can see some of the lines on the left-hand side there. Yeah, man, little character.
And he told me, actually, I told him that a little bit of damage usually makes a car faster.
Yeah, you know, it's like when you get that first car and you get that first scratch and you're like, all right, well, now I can just have fun with it.
Yeah, and he's having fun. He's got the aero disc rear wheels there. He had black ones on.
You know I love those.
Before.
I think White Wheel the World is my slogan now.
But just, this car is so well set up, and Aaron Lichty talked a ton about Eric in an interview I did with him after the accident, and he said it's one thing to be an impressive car builder. It's another thing to be an impressive driver. It is truly special to have both of those in one guy, and that's Eric Kutil. He has support, Hybrid Racing, David Cordell, those folks, they bring him a lot of trackside support, but Eric built this car himself.
We talked about it a little bit yesterday, the level of engineering that it takes. I mean, these individuals, whether or not they own a shop, they own a garage, they own a motorsports company, they could have so many different skill sets, but here in racing, this is where the engineering side, that left side of the brain comes in. It's phenomenal. I mean, it is so impressive.
And this car basically built to represent a JTCC build from the 1990s over in Japan, and he has reached his vision, and here he comes into turn number 11 on the brakes. No ABS in this car, but he's got a lot of tire under the hood, a lot of engine with the K24 power plant right out to the edge of the road across the stripe. Where will Eric Kutil line up provisionally for race number 3? And it will be top of the board for Eric Kutil. What a lap.
That's significant.
That's another 1/10 of a second on top of James Houghton. And now comes that Corvette quartet. We've been talking about it all. Actually, well, 3 of them will be because we had Paul Curley have that engine issue. That's why, well, no, Paul didn't finish top 10. I'm trying to remember thinking who got bumped out. But we'll find out. Here comes the 484. This is Matan Rosenberg, turning 19 in a couple of weeks, Cerise. Young kid.
Oh, we got another young guy out here. Oh, that's so cool.
Another driver that does a lot of his own work, but he does have a shop that helps him out. And here he comes across the stripe. Auto assets on the, or auto interest rather, on the side of that car. Auto assets as well. Down into turn number 1 for Matan Rosenberg, one of the heaviest and most powerful cars in the field. He's going to feel it here when the track is in the heat of the day, but there is a cloud over the racetrack that should cool it off just a little bit.
These are heavy cars, but right from the factory, the way that the suspension is set up, like your center of gravity is so low.
C5s are slippery cars too, Cerise. They are just really good at cutting through the air. So they're a great base chassis to start with, and that's why we've seen them get so popular here.
We have a couple iterations. We have the C5, C6, and C7 out here for this weekend, and I think it's really cool just to see the different variations. But people are really liking the platform.
And there's a C8 in Time Attack as well.
Oh, there is.
There is a C8,
That's
Andy
exciting.
Volkel.
Is he with the driver of the McLaren?
No, he's got the pink C8.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
Right out to the edge at turn number 6 and up towards 7. Rosenberg on the brakes here. And Matan has yet to win a GLTC race. The closest he has gotten was last year in race 4 at Midwest, where he got the advantage of the invert, which we're going to talk about later today. And he battled Tom O'Gorman and Paul Curley for quite some time, got past 3 wide just through the section we were just watching. Ended up finishing a little bit down the order, but so far this season, his best finish 4th, actually both of those at Carolina Motorsports Park. So if a podium yet to come from Matan Rosenberg.
And you touched on it. I don't know if you want to dive more into it right now, but that's what these people are fighting for on track is the inversion. And
yeah,
yes,
for race 4.
And no. Yes and no, because yes, you're going to invert, but it's not necessarily guaranteed where you're going to end up in the inversion. And as you were explaining to me earlier, it really does, there's strategy involved.
We'll talk about that, yeah, in just a second as Rosenberg comes across the stripe.
Oh.
And it's only 4th quick for Rosenberg, so the track position will not come his way, at least at the start of this race. You mentioned the inversion. Let's talk about that. So race 3 is our penultimate race of the weekend. We set the rest of this field by their finishing order from race 2. We do the same for race 4, except we have a random invert of the top third of the field. And what that means is, after the race is over, Renee, up in race control, is going to click a button on a random number generator. It's going to pick a number, and we're going to invert that number of cars for that final race. So we talk about strategy. I mentioned to you in the break that you don't know how many cars are going to get inverted. But race 3 is one of those races where if you can't get to the front, maybe you're better off lingering in 8th through 12th, thereabouts, because if you get landed on for that invert, you will start at the front in race 4, then you just have to keep it all in the mirror. Here's Luke McGrew in turn number 1. He is a Time Attack driver, used to run a Dodge Viper ACR, he called it his Vopper back in the day, and he's really good at keeping all the wheels on the racetrack and setting a very fast lap. This is a Time Attack format style event for GLTC. This is really the one time other than qualifying where they really get to just focus on one lap and not have other cars around them. Now up towards turn number 5. One of the loudest 230 horsepower cars I think I've ever heard. Good balance here into turn 6, maybe a little conservative. That was loaded up very nicely at the exit.
He's a very cool, calm, and collected guy. You know, if you guys saw the interview at the end of the last race, I mean, these guys just have it all together, you know? And I think that's going to reflect in his driving out here, especially since there's nobody out here to apply that extra pressure. It's him against him. As you said last time, he's racing the track.
He's racing the racetrack. And that's a critical statement, and it's something like this where you don't have any other competitors. You're racing the racetrack so that you don't have to race your competitors later. Right. You can keep them in the rear view here. Now down into turn 10B. This is the corner added in the mid-2000s here to lengthen this track about a half a mile. You see that car float out right to the edge using the little rumble strip there. And that was about as much power as that car was going to take without skidding off track. And again, this is where this car is going to excel. The Corvette builds faster on the straightaways than the lighter 4-cylinder cars, but they pay for it in the corners. And nicely done there.
Yeah, a lot of these guys are taking the same line too. Coming in hot, and then right here at the end, what do we get?
Top of the board.
Oh, here he is. Okay, well, you know what? I might have been able to call that.
140.896 by 0.4 of a second. And
followed
next
by his
up,
buddy.
is Jeremy Swenson in the number 3 Viking Performance Corvette. Now, number 3 on the side is for his dad. That's the number that his dad used to run. And last season he was number 30, and he held 3 fingers out the window at PPIR when he had won for the first time in about 8 months. But now he's got the 3 on the side of the car.
I just got some goosebumps. We love the backstory.
He's got.
Here he is. What's he?
He's warming up those tires, so he's getting them up to operating temperature. And he had an issue at Watkins Glen where he couldn't keep heat in the tires. We don't necessarily have a wet and dry tire that is mandated by the series. Of course, we run on 200 treadwear street tires, so he was struggling to keep temperature in the tires he was on at Watkins Glen, and he bailed out of race 4. Said, this is a risk it's not worth taking.
Yes, that track is a little bit squirrely. You're going to have different sections that are dangerous, quite frankly.
And he made the decision that it was not worth running that race to make sure that he had the car for the rest of the season.
Between the wet, not being able to maintain heat, and then it being a very big boy track, what you're looking at here at GingerMan, you're going to have a very different racing experience than if you were to go someplace like Watkins.
Now up the back straightaway towards turn number 3. Swenson's got 6 wins on the season, most recently coming this morning. And as far as his prior events have gone, it was 3 firsts and a 9th at Circuit of the Americas. It was 2 firsts, a 2nd, and a 4th at Carolina Motorsports Park. And then a 7th, 2nd, and 5th at Watkins Glen. And then so far this weekend, a 2nd and a 1st.
That's a pretty significant spread.
His average finish last season was, I think, the best of anybody.
Well, he was giving Tom O'Gorman a run for his money.
He was.
But you know, Tom came out on top. Congratulations on that.
It was hard to beat Tom. He won 20 of the 40 races, so it was pretty hard to beat him. But as far as this season so far, he's won 6 of 13 that he has started, Cerise. So as far as that number is looking, it's looking to be a pretty similar scenario.
Yeah,
but
he said, my turn.
But we've seen lately, with the Watkins Glen race in particular, that when the conditions get challenging, he drives with a margin on top of his ability. He's an extremely capable driver, and if he could push into the uncomfort level, he could certainly still be up in 1st and 2nd in those crazy races, but he doesn't want to because he was playing, as Scott Giles put it, playing the long game for the championship here. He doesn't need to win every race. You just need to be in every one and make sure that you're in the picture.
Yeah, and doing the work yourself, I mean, really, it's a consideration that these men and women have to put into. Oh, hold on.
Is it top of the board for Jeremy Swenson? Yes.
Wow.
Jeremy Swenson, a 140.197 by 7/10 of a second. That is the fastest lap in our top 10 shootout. What a drive there by Jeremy Swenson.
Good job, bud.
And as far as other runners, I wonder if our 10th finisher from earlier just didn't make it out, because Jeremy was our winner and our last driver in. So
is he going for a cool-down lap? What's going on?
Cool-down lap at this stage. Yep, he'll be heading back around. And I don't have my race 2 results posted just yet, so I wonder, because I thought there was someone else. Oh, Ronnie Vidoc was in the top 10. I don't know.
Ronnie,
we're going to find out. So Ronnie did not make an appearance in the top 10 shootout, unfortunately. We did see Zach Lavoy go out first, which means he got bumped from 11th to 10th, which means that Ronnie didn't show up to grid and not go. He was just not permitted to run the shootout, so not sure what's up there. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But now it is time to step away from the top 10 shootout and head over to our track battle Q3 in a couple of minutes. We'll be back after that for GLTC Race 3 Series, so be ready in about an hour and a half or so. We're going to go race again.
I'm so ready.
All right. We'll see you for track battle qualifying 3 in a few minutes.
Born on the track, bred on the mountains, raised on the podium, ready for anything and everything. Learn more about our entire line at falcontire.com.
Owning a car can be expensive. It can also be confusing. What? And when things don't go right, there's no doubt it could be frustrating. But it can also be a lot of fun. And for those reasons, FCP Hero exists. Check this out. Do you and your car a favor and head over to fcphero.com to learn more.
Hi, I'm Chris Forsberg, and when it comes to classics and high-performance cars, I only trust America's #1 racing oil, Valvoline VR1. It's built on Valvoline's long legacy in racing, so I can continue to build my own. With 2 times more zinc than the industry standard, VR1's high-performance formula is tested on the track and trusted on the road to ensure your engine is protected from metal-to-metal contact. And I use it so much, I haven't got my car on the bottle. That's why whether I'm racing or cruising, I protect everything I drive with Valvoline. Valvoline, trusted for over 150 years.